Reach for the Sky. Today I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the best options for ground attack in War Thunder Ground Forces when you're flying your aircraft. Now, if you don't plan on going for dedicated fighter aircraft with which to engage enemy aircraft, then you can either choose between a multi-purpose aircraft or a dedicated dive bomber or level bomber. Some German planes combine both dive bomber and level bomber. For example, the Ju-88 and the Dornier 217s. These can dive bomb and level bomb, which is quite useful. So if we start off in Tier 1, excuse the sniffles, I'm a little bit under the weather. Tier 1, you've got the two Stukas, the Bf-110 and the Heinkel 111H3. Now the Bf-110 is the best multi-purpose plane. It's got excellent armament for this tier. It's got a pair of MG FFMs which can use Meinengeschoss and 4 light machine guns. You can take a single 500 kilo bomb, which is the best option because the twin 250s drop together. So unfortunately you can't do 2 separate runs with those. I believe the single 500 has slightly less drag. No, slightly more drag apparently. But yeah, the single 500 is a powerful bomb. If you drop that into a circle, you'll be able to cover most of the circle of the cap zone. And when you've dropped your bomb, you can defend yourself. Now, the Bf-110 actually turns quite well for a large 2-engine plane. Not as well as a 109, but you could probably turn with a lag if you're using your combat flaps. There's a single 500 there. Well armed, and it's fast as well. There's the two Stukas. Now the first Stuka, that can take a single 500, or 450s and a 250. I think those 450s drop in pairs, so 250s, then 250s, then the single 250. I think the 250 drops first though. It's very poorly armed though. Both of these are poorly armed. They've only got a pair of light MGs and a rear turret with a single light MG. The 110, by the way, also has a rear turret, but its arc of fire is quite limited, especially downwards. You can't shoot very far down. You have to aim quite high because the fuselage is blocking the gun. But the first Stuka, I think the first two Stukas both have the sirens. I don't think you can hear those from the ground, which is a shame. That'd be a nice feature, but the R2 is different because it can mount a 1,000 kilo bomb, which is pretty serious for Tier 1. Look at the size of that thing. I mean, it's almost as big as the plane. You can knock out a KV-1 from probably about 15 meters away with that. Well, probably more actually, maybe 20-25 meters. But you only get one, and it really doesn't help the climb rate. If you look at the rate of climb in the bottom right there, it's got, according to the stat card, it starts off at 4.1 and the bomb takes away 4.1, so you're climbing at 0 meters a second. The stat cards are a little bit messed up, but the point is, your plane will handle like crap. The Stuka actually has a really nice turning circle. It handles very well, but with this bomb, you're going to be a pig with wings, basically. And once you've dropped your bomb, you can't really defend yourself. Especially when you're running back to base to rearm, this plane isn't very fast, so you're probably going to get picked off. But if you're if you're lucky enough to get into a game without enemy aircraft, like enemy fighters, then you might do well. The only problem then is the masses of aimbot AAA, which the computers can use to pick you out of the sky from a million miles away. So the Stukas are good dive bombers. They're dive bombers, by the way. You can't level bomb with them. Well, you can, but you don't get any kind of accuracy with it. You don't have a bombardier like with the Heinkel, which I will get onto in a moment. So the Stukas are one-shot wonders really. You drop your bomb, then your outcome, then that's the end of your output. You can't really change the outcome of the game after that, unless you're lucky enough to get back to base. Finally is the Heinkel 111H3. This is a big, slow, lumbering beast. It really doesn't handle very well, especially when laden up with the bombs. You've got 5 MGs, one beneath, one above, one at the front, and 2 waist gunners, so you can cover yourself from all angles. But these are only 7mm, 7.92 light MGs, so they're not going to do much damage. But The Heinkel does have a huge bomb capacity for this tier, 250 kilos. You can really bring the pain to the Russians with that bomb load. Just got to be careful you don't get shot out of the sky by flak. Which can happen because this plane is big and it's slow, so you're quite an easy target. Okay, so the next tier, you got your Bf-109, E1 and E3. Now these are fighters, but they can take a single 250. 450s aren't really worth it because they're so small and you don't get any kind of crosshair, so it's quite difficult to aim. The E1 really doesn't have the firepower to deal with Russian planes, even tier 1 Russian planes, apart from the biplanes, the BB-1, the Su-2s, the Yaks and the Lags, 4 MG-17s. You're gonna be firing hundreds of rounds at these Russian planes and you're not going to be doing a great deal of damage. Unless you're lucky enough to critically damage their tail or their engine, you're probably not going to kill anything, unless you expend all 3,000 rounds on the same plane. But they can carry a light bomber load, and they're fast, and they're pretty agile, so I'd at least consider the E1s and give it a try. The Dornier 217s, these are like the Heinkel, except slightly faster. They fly just as badly, though. You can take 850 kilos. Not very powerful, but you can saturate a little area with a little bombing run. Well armed. 4 MG FFMs and 4 MG-17s all packed into the nose, so good for hunting down enemy planes, unless they're agile, because, like I said, this thing really doesn't fly well. It's literally the Dornier 217 bomber converted into a night fighter, designed to shoot down things like Lancasters primarily, so not a dogfighter by any standard. And then there's the J2, which seems to be very similar, except it doesn't have a bomb bay, so you can't take bombs. Any other changes? No other major changes. 2 more Stukas. Next is the D3. This can't dig a 1,000 kilo bomb, but it can take lots of other different kinds of weaponry. You can get a single 500 and 2 250s. And I think that gives you 2 bombing runs, because the 250s drop together, then you get the 500. So you get an extra bombing run. Armament is the same, except the rear gunner has been upgraded to a pair of MGs instead of just a single one. Any internal changes? Improved armour, apparently. Around the fuselage and the pilot. Additional plating under the radiator. Okay, so it's basically an up-armoured Stuka with a wider range of weaponry and an extra gun for the rear gunner. The D5 has a pair of MG-151 cannon, which is massively more powerful than the D3's pea shooters. These cannons can take a wide range of ammo belts. There's the air targets, which has Mine and Geschoss, very powerful against planes, although the IO2 can take a bit of punishment. And you can take an armour-piercing high explosive belt. This is my favourite because they're effective against armoured planes like the IL-2, because they've got an armour-piercing head on the shell, but they can also penetrate the roof of tank armour. So if you shoot at the engine deck of a T-34, you might set them on fire. And you've got 500 rounds per gun, so you're never going to run out of ammo unless you really keep holding down the trigger. You're either going to die or the mission's going to be over before you run out of ammo. Same bomb load as the D3. Now we've got the Ju-88. This is the first German aircraft that combines medium bombing and dive bombing. So you can be a level bomber, or you can dive bomb, which is very handy. Particularly because, as the Ju-88 has a dedicated bombardier and a bomb sight, you can dive bomb and keep the reticle, so the yellow crosshair that appears on the ground stays there even when you're diving towards the ground. It doesn't widen like with the Heinkel 111. This thing has quite an impressive bomb load, not as good as the Heinkel, but 4 250s and 2050s. Those 2050s aren't going to be doing a great deal. You can bomb AAA with them, or you can drop them all on a couple of unlucky fellas, but it's the big bombs that matter. Now, why have I gone for the 4 250s instead of the pair of 500s? Well, Both 500s drop at the same time, whereas the 4 250s drop in pairs, so you get an extra bombing opportunity. It's also fairly fast. It doesn't handle very well though. Heinkel 111 H6 is next. This has the same bomb load here, except you can also take a pair of 1,000 kilos. So drop one of those on a cap circle, and you're going to clear it out. But obviously, you can make 8 separate bombing runs with the 250s, but only 2 here or 3 here. Torpedoes, not much use against tanks, but the 2,000 kilos are very powerful. Any changes in the armament? No, I don't think so. What can the stat card tell us? Nothing helpful. Okay, thanks Gaijin. Next is Tier 3. Same routine with the 109Es. The F4 is a fighter aircraft that can take a few different kinds of ground weapon. Single 500 kilo, not bad. Or you can go in your anti-aircraft role and take your gun pods and stick your mine and good shots on there. Now the A5, this is the first Focke-Wulf that can take bombs, I think. No, sorry, rockets. The Focke-Wulfs made excellent ground attack planes. Even though the 190F was the dedicated ground attacker, all of the 190s made good ground attackers because they had excellent low altitude performance, the speed, and they were well armoured and they had quite a rugged engine. But the first Tier 3 190 here can take a pair of bomber destroying rockets. These rockets are designed to engage bombers, but they're packed with a lot of explosive. So you fire these off at a tank, and you can blow up even a KV-1 or a KV-2 if you get a direct hit. And it's also got your pair of MG151s and your pair of FFMs, so that's got a lot of firepower. You're not useless once you've dropped your bomb. And it's faster and it climbs better than the 109. It's not as good at dogfighting, but it's better at escaping. Now you've got your Dornier 217Ns. These are much like the Js, except the MG FFMs have been replaced with MG 151s. The N1 here can take your 850s, your hand grenades as Jingles calls them, or your N2, which doesn't have a bomb bay. What's the difference between these two? New radio. That's not very handy unless you can drop it. And a radio direction finder. Okay, nothing useful. Unless you can pack those radios with explosives and drop them out the bomb bay. Ju-87Gs. These are a lot of fun, but they're not really that good. they're one of those novelty planes that they're crap, but they're fun. Well, they are good if you can get literally 180-degree angle straight down onto the engine deck of a Russian tank, like a T-34, or anything based on the T-34 chassis, like the Su-85 or the Su-100. But a KV-1, if you're trying to dive onto a KV-1 or anything heavily armoured like that, you're probably not going to penetrate, because these guns are okay, but if you're not aiming at the engine deck of a T-34, you're going to have a hard time. They're basically a weaponised version of the Pak-36, which is a little pre-war anti-tank gun. Not very much penetration, but you get a few shots in, you might ruin someone's day. Don't handle too well. Those big gun pods don't help wind resistance, and they're also quite heavy, which is why the Ju-87 had to be stripped down. The G model literally has almost no armour, so if someone shoots you, you're going to like lose a wing. If a Russian throws a vodka bottle at you as you pass over, it'll probably tear the plane in half. The Heinkel 111 H16. This is the latest variant of the Heinkel in the game, which for some reason is power rating 3.7. Seems a little over tier to me. It's much the same as the previous version. Bomb loadouts are the same. The armament has been improved. You now get a 20mm cannon in the nose, and one of the light MG turrets has been replaced with a heavy MG. I think you get new engines as well. Yes, new engines, so it's a bit faster. Otherwise, still handles like a pig though. G2 drop, same as the F4s, you can stick a bomb on it. A5U2, now, this is the first really good ground attack plane I think the Germans get. apart from the ME410, which is a lower battle rating, so I'll get onto that in a second. But this is the best multi-purpose plane I think the Germans get so far that I've flown. My favourite loadout is the rockets. Even though these are designed for bombers, they really mess up tanks. The A5U2 is very fast, it's got great guns, so once you drop your bombs, basically the same as the A5, except, I don't know, I just prefer the A5U2 for some reason. I don't think it handles any better, it's just a personal preference, I suppose. That's the Focke-Wulf 190s. Now the ME410A1, I discovered this little gem recently, it's fantastic. Not very agile, but this thing can take a pair of 500 kilos. The bomb bay is actually here, I didn't know this. So, you know, it seems like a pretty dull plane, so I just glanced over it. You can take two 500s and these drop independently, you can do 2 bombing runs. And what's good about this plane is the bomb bay is internal, so it's streamlined, no extra drag, well armed. You've got a pair of MG151s and a pair of 7.92s. You've also got dive brakes, and you've also got pretty high speed. The climbing and the turning isn't very good, but you can run away quite effectively. You've got a rear gunner, but the rear gunner on the ME410 is crap in my experience. So that's the ME410. Next is this heavy fighter version, which is designed to engage bombers, so it doesn't have any bombs. The B1 is much the same as the A1, except the engines are better. They've got 150 extra horsepower each, and the 7.92s were replaced by 13 mils. Same with the B1U2. The ducks. The Henshaw 129 B2 and the B3. Same battle rating. First of all, the B2. This can take a wide range of guns and some very small bombs, which they're worthless really. Unless you're trying to blow up a couple of Russians in a tent, these aren't going to be very useful. But the MK103, that's quite an impressive weapon. It's got, especially with the, I think it's HVAP, where is it? Yeah, high velocity armor piercing. They can punch through the roof of most tanks. And you can take a BK 3.7, which is the same gun the Stuka G2 and G1 uses, except you've only got one. So, take your pick. You can take your pile driver, or your sledgehammer, or your stones. It's up to you. B3. This thing is hilarious. It's basically got the Pak 40, the gun that the late models of the Panzer IV uses, and it's stuck in an underplane pod. Now, this pod and the weapon and the ammunition weighs about 4,000 pounds in total, so this plane handles like absolute shit. I've got to be honest. It does fly like absolute crap. The controls lock up at like 600 kilometers an hour, so you make your dive and you fire a shot and you lose about 20 kilometers an hour, and the plane sort of like breaks itself apart with the recoil. It doesn't really, but it shakes a lot. Then you can't pull up the elevator because it's sort of jammed. But the 75mm is a very powerful weapon. You don't have to engage from directly above with this thing, especially when you're firing the HVAP. You got a sniper scope there, which isn't implemented yet, unfortunately, but I hope they do. Backing up the 75mm is a pair of, wait for it, 7.92s, yeah. Perfect for tearing IL-2s in half. Now, these are much like the Ju-88s. They can dive bomb and they can level bomb. I may be wrong on that, but as far as I'm aware, that's true. And you can take a pretty impressive range of weapons, including 4 1,000 kilos, which is pretty impressive. The E4, I don't think this can dive bomb. I was just reading up on it, and it doesn't have dive brakes, because eventually the idea of using this as a dive bomb was dropped, so maybe you can't dive bomb with it. I can't verify because I've never flown it. I should probably mention the premiums as well at this point. But the only one really worth mentioning is the Wellington. That can carry a pretty impressive bomb load. Single 4,000 pound. Oh no, that's the later variant, the 4,000 pounder. 9 500s, that's pretty good. It's basically equivalent to 9 250 kilos, so not bad. P-47 can't take bombs, And the D13 can take a wide range of bombs, but I'll get to that in a minute. Next is Tier 4. Now, Tier 4 doesn't have very many planes in it. G6, same routine for the rest of the 109s. Same with the G10. You probably shouldn't be using these two as dive bombers because they're really not designed for it. But if you're feeling desperate, like the Germans were in real life, you can stick bombs on it. The A8. This is a bomber dedicated to bomber destroyer, and that's why the armament was increased. But it can be used as a fighter. It can take the rockets, which is nice. The engine is the same as previous versions, but you can use boost, so you can boost the power up to nearly 2,000 horsepower. And you've got very heavy armament, so once you've fired off your rockets, you can do a bit of Russian plane killing. Now the F8, that's the dedicated ground attack aircraft. This has 10 loadout options. Not all of them are useful. Like, you can take your four rocks, your 8 rocks, your dustbin, your boulder, or you can take a pair of MK103s. Pretty powerful, but only 35 rounds per gun, which is a bit crap. But you can take your single 1,000 kilo and your 450s, which is probably the best option, because that 1,000 kilo bomb is going to leave a big hole in the side of a Russian tank. Actually, there won't be a hole, there'll just be a sort of mangled mess. Well, you know what I mean. The B6R3, this was originally designed as an anti-shipping weapon. It's got a pair of MK103s with 120 rounds each, which is a lot of ammo. Now when you're firing HVAP with those, you can punch through the roof armour of pretty much any tank. But with the larger tanks, you're going to need to really focus your fire to do any noticeable damage. The A1U4 and the B2U4, as I explained earlier, the difference between the A and the B is the B2's got slightly more powerful engines. In this case, neither of them have MGs, but they've got 20mm cannons to back up the BK5. The BK5 is essentially the Panzer IIIJ's gun, or Panzer IIIL, since the J's in the game. There's a lot like the 50mm L60 you see on the Panzer IIIL and M. You can fire HVAP, I believe. Yeah, HVAP, yeah. So that's a pretty powerful anti-tank weapon, even though it's designed as a bomber destroyer. You can use this gun to destroy tanks with. I don't have any experience with it myself, but I assume the penetration is quite powerful. The Dornier 217s, these are further upgraded versions of the E with more powerful engines. I believe the M's got a 4-bladed propeller. Maybe the K has as well. No rush. No, 3-bladed. I'm not sure if these can dive bomb, to be honest. Let's see the bomb load. Same as the previous 217, so pretty impressive bomb load. Quite fast. Probably don't handle too well because they're German bombers. This is the one with the 4-bladed prop. There we go. That looks pretty nice. Shame the rest of the plane is so ugly. But that's your typical medium bomber there with a pretty impressive 4,000 kilo bomb load, so pretty impressive. K4. If you're using a K4 as a dive bomber, then you really need to rethink your life. Especially since it doesn't even have any bombs. Yeah. Unless you can release your MG151 gun pods at the right moment and let them crash down on top of the T-34s. The Doras, yeah. The D9 is probably better than the D12 because the D9 is better at low altitude. Its engine and supercharger is tuned for it. You can take your hand grenades, you can take your single 500. D12 is the same, except it's got an MK108, which I think you can load up with armor piercing. High-E-T, Incendiary, no you can't, so that's not too good. The Dora, much the same as the D9, got your hand grenades, your single 500. The D13 and the D9 and the D12, they're all very fast planes. They handle much like the normal Focke-Wulf, except they're slightly faster, but the roll rate is slightly worse. But, well armed, so once you drop your bombs you can get into the fray and make a mess of the enemy fighters. TA-152 can't take bombs. Tier 5 Now, as you can see, I haven't got any of these unlocked, so my knowledge of these is pretty limited, but I can't imagine these make two good ground attackers. Maybe if you spam those little R4M rockets. No bombs. Oh, Canadair. Pair of 1,000 pounders. If you spot a T-54 that you really don't like the look of, you could drop a pair of 1,000 pounders on it. Same with the MiG. What's that got? Oh, pathetic. The 50mm, same as on the... what the hell is that thing in the middle? You seen that? Oh, that's kind of weird, isn't it? You can fire a wooden stake into Dracula's heart from a 50mm mounted on the front of a 262. But you can fire HVAP, so if you're so inclined, you can use the 262 A1 UFOL Polkzerstörer as a ground attacker, if you really want to. And there's our old friend the Arado, the best fighter in the game. But he can take 1,000 kilo bomb and a pair of 250s, so you can jet bomb those Ruskies who have come back in time to 1945 with their future tanks, and you can say, screw you, I got the Arado. Taste jet bomber, you Soviet. Well, that's your Soviet? That's not your Soviet planes, that's your German planes. To sum up, Tier 1, probably the best overall, was the Bf-110. Tier 2, it's a toss-up between the D5 and the Ju-88. I'd probably take the Ju. Tier 3, the A1, or the A5U2. If you're more into your ground attack, I'd take the A1. The B3 is fun, but it's not really practical, it flies like crap. Tier 4, don't have much experience with this, probably the B6, just because of those NK-103s and the massive ammo you can take. But of course the F8, that's optimised for low altitude performance, so... Tier 5, well, I don't know if anyone's going to be dive bombing at Tier 5. If you really wanna, really wanna, take the Sabre, a pair of 1,000 pounders, or you can take your 262 A1/U troll and fire 8 FAP at those Russians. Well, I hope this is helpful. I hope you found this helpful in one way or another. See you soon.